Hi, I'm Megan West with My Faith Votes. We're so glad you can join us today. I have the awesome opportunity to introduce a volunteer, actually, of My Faith Votes, but someone who has a very powerful personal story that's related to a very important and hot topic that's happening right now, and that's the topic of immigration. So I'd like to introduce to you Deborah. Deborah, it's great to see you, having you join us today, and so glad that you've reached out to us. You've been a great friend and volunteer for My Faith Votes, but you have a story that's very unique to what's happening in our country today. And I wanted people to hear it because it's very important for people to, I think, hear what's not being portrayed in the media regarding immigration. So can you tell a little bit about your background and why this is so close to your heart?
Sure. So thank you so much, Megan, for having me on your show today. I was born and raised in Brownsville. In fact, next year in June of 2022, my family will have resided and farmed in Brownsville, Texas, for 100 years. So to living on the border has been a multi-generational thing for my family. And like my grandfather and great-grandfather, I grew up along the Rio Grande River. And so I have seen firsthand some of what occurs when you live on an international boundary.
So tell us a little bit what you've been seeing, especially in the last, let's say 6 months, because you had shared with me when we had talked off camera, just the difference you've seen with administrations that have come through. So what have you seen since last fall, and then what's happening right now?
Sure. So to give a little perspective, the sector that I live in terms of Border Patrol is called the RGV sector. And I want to go ahead and kind of paint that picture because I think people need to understand how how Border Patrol operates in terms of sectors and what and the territory they cover. So as I mentioned, I'm part of our family farm is inside of the RGV sector. And I did a little research because I myself was like, well, wait a second, how big is the RGV sector? And having lived here my whole life, I couldn't tell you that specifically. So after doing a little bit of research, the RGV sector, which is about 34,000 square miles, covers over 20 counties. And it has over, which to give some perspective, there's 254 counties in Texas.
Right.
And there are a total of 20 sectors for Border Patrol throughout the United States. So our one sector alone, within the past couple of months, now this is a little shocking when I was looking at the data that was posted, in terms of, let's say, for example, we were hearing a lot about unaccompanied minor children, or unaccompanied alien children is what they're referred to. As of March 27th, 2021, there have been 18,000 unaccompanied alien children that have come through our RGV sector. Now, the area specifically to where I live and where my family farms is more known for for drug trafficking. It's not as much the human trafficking, although it does happen. Obviously, all kinds of trafficking happens through our property. However, the majority of what does pass through there is drug trafficking. Now, you asked me, what am I seeing? It's more, what am I not seeing? I exercise out there regularly, and I bike and I run out there. And let me give you an example. A week ago, I biked 12 miles all along the river. Not once did I see a Border Patrol agent or any type of law enforcement. Why? Why is that? Because they are tied up in processing. The last number I looked at as of March 27th, I believe we had 34,000 people that have come across. And so the agents have been pulled out of the fields and pulled off, like, for example, our property, and there's nobody patrolling. There's nobody working the fields. There's nobody out there picking up the people that come across.
And to give a
So
little
go
perspective, so
ahead.
you're in Brownsville, which is the southernmost part of Texas, for people who aren't
Correct.
familiar with where that is. But you actually have border on your land. So is
Absolutely.
border fenced? Is that all open? How describe kind of what's on your property?
Okay, so it's a little complicated. Part of it is fenced and part of it is not. So we farm and we lease land for farming. And at one point, we have what's called a levee, and the border fence runs parallel with the levee. And the land on both sides is American territory. A lot of people don't realize that. They think that as soon as you're on the other side of the border fence, you're in Mexico. That's not the case. The divide between, in our region, the divide between Mexico and the United States is the Rio Grande River. That is the true divide. And so we do have the border fence, and there are gates that we open to get to our property on the other side. We have to be able to take tractors and combines and trucks and all of the equipment through to farm the land that's on the other side of the border fence. It's
Yeah,
really
so
hard. You have to be able to see it. It's very hard to describe.
but you said, but you've not seen any border agents in the area that you are around all the time.
Correct.
And so you're saying that they're just too busy to be in that space because of what
They
they're handling.
Correct. They are extremely busy right now. Extremely busy. And so consequently, if we know that, you know that, who do you think knows that? The drug cartel knows that. And so they're going to take full advantage of this. And this is something that I believe the media needs to talk more about. We talk all the time about all of the children we've picked up and all of the family units we've picked up. But what we are not talking about is who's getting away.
Mm-hmm.
Who is getting away? And I'm going to tell you right now, it's criminals that are getting away. It's your sex traffickers, your drug cartel, human smugglers, all of it. You name it, it's coming through on our property. And if we were to call Border Patrol right now, if we see something suspicious, chances are they're not going to be able to respond because they are busy processing people, and you can't send one Border Patrol agent all alone out there to combat a group of 10, 15 bodies.
Yeah.
With and expect no backup. That's not right.
Right.
So people are just coming across. It's a free for all. Our borders are open.
And you had said that you've noticed just a huge influx in your area and seeing buses carrying people by the busloads. Where are they taking them? Do you know once they cross the border where they're going?
So like I mentioned before, the area of which my family specifically farms and where I spend most of my time, we're not seeing buses in particular. It's a few miles down river where we're seeing buses. And you see them through town all the time. You see them through driving through Brownsville. You see the vans, you see the buses, you see the Border Patrol units. From what I've been told, I know some of them go to Donna processing. Supposedly they were all supposed to go to processing, but now we're getting kind of conflicting reports in terms of where are all these people going. The process is supposed to be processing, and then they're put on buses and taken elsewhere. And I can't honestly tell you right now what specifically is happening because there have been so many, and our processing centers are completely saturated. They cannot hold another individual. So I know there's tents that have been put up in Donna, Brownsville specifically. They don't seem to be staying in Brownsville. We do have a couple nonprofits I know that are helping. We also have, I believe Southwest Keys, for example, is a government program that I know is helping as well. I got behind traffic about 2 weeks ago, and there was about 18 vans pulling into one of the government programs. 18, I think they're like 15 passenger vans, and they were all lined up and pulling into Southwest Keys. So I mean, it's a common occurrence to see the buses, the vans, but to where they're going, the bus stop, Donna processing, you name it.
And so kind of back to just seeing the influx now, has there been that just since the Biden administration has come on board, or was that happening before? And what do you think is the difference if there has been such a big change?
No, it is definitely been since the Biden administration. I think for the previous administration, there were how do I say this? There were border issues, but there were some policies that were put into place that really helped combat some of this heavy illegal activity, I guess you could say. The remain in Mexico policy, to seek asylum in the country which you're coming from first, and that really helped combat the amount of people that were coming across, because they knew that they were going to be processed and sent back, and they knew that they had to apply for asylum wherever they were coming from first. They can just come over here, be given your court date, and show up and be released. And the majority of them, they get their court dates to show up and they're released, and we never see them again. And so all of this has changed since Biden's come in. They come in, they're released. There's so many of them. There's no way we're going to be able to track them all. And the other thing, and consequently, because there are so many that are coming in, there is no fathomable way that we can screen all of the individuals coming in. And that is a severe disservice to the children that are coming over here. It is a humanitarian crisis, because you are seeing these kids come over with adults, and they say they are families, but are they really? A lot of times they are not. They are not. There's no relation.
Yeah, and there's been reports of just human smuggling, and
absolutely
the traffickers using the children as pawns to get others across the border.
Correct. Well, and that's exactly what it is. It's been used as a diversion, because if you tie Border Patrol up and you keep bringing all of these people across, they know there's parts of the river that are open and a free-for-all, and they can come across, and they come across with drugs and all kinds of stuff. I've seen it personally myself in previous years. I mean, drug trafficking has always been around. I mean, you can slow it down, but you'll never be able to stop it. I don't believe you'll ever be able to stop it completely. But there are things and policies you can put in place, and tools you can use to help combat it. And through the years, I've seen the uptick and I've seen the slowdown. And obviously during the previous administration, it had begun to slow down. Now it takes time. It doesn't just happen overnight. You have to enact these policies, and the word has to get around that these policies are being enforced. But the word sure got around quick when our administration changed, that policies were no longer being enforced, and we had open borders.
It seems like it. And you also said there's a wide variety of people coming across the border. It's not just people from Mexico.
No.
Can you speak into that a little bit?
Sure. And this is open for anybody that wants to look. The Customs, Border Protection and Customs website, I believe it's a .gov website. Specifically, the RGV sector had a post the other day that was quite devastating. It said there have been multiple individuals. Obviously, I think I quoted 34,000. I need to double check and make sure that's correct, but it's been thousands and thousands. And I think at this point, we're up to 50 different countries that have been represented.
Wow. Yeah.
In just one bust alone, in one, I guess, apprehension alone, I believe there were 18. There were 18 individuals and a couple, I think 5 or 6 different countries represented, and with just 18 individuals.
Wow. So it's a wide variety of people.
Very much so. Very much so. And as this progresses, you're going to see an uptick of different countries, different nationalities, and whatnot.
So any unusual or interesting personal stories that have happened on your land that you would like to share with people, just to kind of explain the severity of really what's going on, even because you're experiencing it right in your family on your land?
So we did have an incident about 2 weeks ago. One of our workers, like I said, we're farmers, and we're in a severe drought right now in our area. And so we are in the process of irrigating fields. I say we, it's more my family. I'm a little bit more removed from that situation. But nevertheless, present to hear the story. And one of the workers stopped to check the irrigation pumps. And when he got out of his vehicle, about 4 young men popped out of the ditch close by his truck and proceeded to jump in his truck, try to get into his vehicle. They mistook him they believe that he was their ride, what we call the coyote, coming to pick them up as they had just recently crossed the river. And he proceeded to say, obviously this conversation took place in Spanish, but he proceeded to say, "Hey, I am just here working. I have nothing to do with what's going on with y'all. I'm here working. I'm checking water, and I'm done." And as they got out, went back to the ditch. One or two others proceeded to stand up out of the ditch as well. So I think at the end, he said there was 5 or 6 young men standing there. One of them had a cell phone trying to figure out, "Hey, where's our ride? What are we doing?" He said he got in his truck, locked the door, and he left. He said he didn't want to be a part of that situation at all.
Wow. So you're seeing it right on your...
Absolutely. And what's scary about that is we, meaning my family, has to live and work despite what the current administration policies are. So if there's no law enforcement out there, we still have to live and work. I mean, that's my family's livelihood. We can't just stop working because all of a sudden it became extremely dangerous.
Right. Exactly. Well, at My Faith Votes, we talk about 3 things to really encompass everything that we do. We pray about things, we think biblically about the issues, and then we put faith into action and actually do something about it. So let's walk through those in light of this situation, especially from your perspective of where you and your family are on the border dealing with immigration. How can we be praying about this? And just because it's become such an intense issue right now, and there's a lot of division about it as far as how to handle it and what is being done, what's not being done. But how, as Christians, can we be praying for this situation of immigration? Because this involves real people coming across the border.
So I thought about this because I knew I was going to be asked this question, and I even spoke with some of my family about this, and I thought, and one of the things that was discussed the most is this is a humanitarian crisis. The media, as I mentioned, the media is focusing on the family units and the children. And as I previously mentioned, they're not focusing on what's happening behind the scenes, essentially in terms of people coming across and not getting caught. But at the forefront, we are seeing children that are in essence orphans. If you're talking about, I think I quoted, I want to say 18,000 unaccompanied alien children just for our sector alone.
Wow.
There are over 20 sectors for Border Patrol. Just for our sector alone in 3 months, 18,000 unaccompanied alien children. That's a humanitarian crisis.
Yeah.
And I know the Bible speaks specifically to Christians about we have a duty to reach out to widows and orphans. I can't remember the exact verse and where it's found, but I know we have a duty. And I think we need to be thinking about how are we going to do that? What's going to happen to these children? Do they become wards of the state? And if that's the case, what is the state going to offer them?
Right.
And additionally, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, and kind of on the flip side, see, as the church, how can we be speaking into these children's lives? And I mean, the mission field is coming to us. So what can we be doing right where you're at to come alongside instead of having no idea where these kids end up?
Right. And I know, like you said, there's a lot of division on the issue because there's people that say, well, if we help them, then they're just going to keep coming. Well, yes and no. I mean, ultimately, they're going to keep coming until policies change. But we have to deal with what we've been given. And right now, in my sector where I live, it's 18,000 children. And I mean, we have a duty as Christians. And then the second thing I think we really need to be praying about too is for our law enforcement. Right. There are things you can do. You can write letters. You can reach out. You can call the stations and ask, hey, how can we express our gratitude and our appreciation? Because they are overworked. When you're talking specifically about federal agents right now, I was thinking about this as I was preparing to talk about how we can help them, and I thought, well, wait a second, how many agents do we have total for in terms of federal agents? And I believe in 2019, the stat was we have about 19,600.
Wow.
And you're dealing with 30,000 people coming through one sector in 3 months, sometimes 1,000 a day, a couple hundred a day in certain areas. I mean, really? You want to talk about being overworked and overwhelmed. And, part of part of the U.S. Customs and the Border Protection statement, and I want to quote for you guys. It says the U.S. Customs and Border Protection is the unified border agency within the Department of Homeland Security charged with the management, control, and protection of our nation's borders at and between official ports of entry. Do you know how disheartening that must be for them to not be able to fulfill their mission statement?
It's very true. Mm-hmm.
Demoralized, no doubt. So in terms of what we as civilians can do is reach out, pray, and don't be afraid to thank them when you see them, because they need it. And it's not just federal agents. I'm sure you've heard Operation Lone Star is utilizing, Governor Abbott enacted Operation Lone Star, and they're utilizing different agencies. DPS is helping, constables are helping. I've even seen Texas Parks and Wildlife at one point help before too. So don't hesitate to stop and thank these people, these heroes.
So then, in regards to thinking about this issue from a biblical standpoint and being able to think well, obviously we wanted to have you on to hear your perspective, and it's hard to always get facts from the media. Where do you encourage us to find the truth and to know about what's really going on? Other than hearing from firsthand people like you, is there places that you can recommend that we might be able to go to? Is that kind of finding the news in your city, or?
I do think I would go straight to the source in some cases. I know the RGV sector, for example, their Facebook, the RGV Border Patrol sector is posting updates almost daily about apprehensions. They have a couple pictures to go with them. That's where I've got some of this data. Some of it, just for example, 861 criminal aliens this year to date in the RGV sector have been apprehended. They posted that data. The media it doesn't necessarily fit the media's narrative. So while the data may be out there, they're not going to be quoting it, because 861 criminals apprehended in one sector alone, that's quite a number in 3 months.
Right. So it really just speaks to being diligent about seeking out facts. And
yes. And make connections, logically make connections. There's a lot of this that doesn't make sense. Let me give you one example. I encourage people to question their local officials, question them. Why is it that Brownsville won't even have an in-person city commission meeting, but yet our mayor will get on national news and he'll say, there's no border crisis. We can take more immigrants.
Interesting.
Ask your officials questions. Don't be afraid. We need Christians in the public square. We need people asking and holding people accountable, holding our elected officials accountable, and asking these tough questions.
Right. Well, and that goes right into the third aspect of taking action. What can we do to act and be proactive? Obviously, we need to know and think well about it. We need to be praying about it. But what can we be doing, to support even people like you who are right on the border? What actions can we be taking?
So I've seen a lot. There have been a lot of petitions recently, and these links where you can contact your representative. And one of the biggest things is I'm leading a small group of people, trying to get them active specifically in Brownsville, using their voice, because our voice is powerful, especially if we can all come together. And one of the things I'm telling them is, I understand that you may not agree with perhaps your elected congressman for your district or your mayor, but they still need to hear from you. Right. And while you may think it falls on deaf ears, it doesn't. They have to listen to your feedback, especially, for example, I know I have personally addressed my city commission and asked them some of these questions. Why is it, Mayor? And obviously tactful and respectful, and that's what you always want to be, is tactful and respectful, but you can still ask difficult questions. Right. Why is it, Mayor, that you're telling people on, for example, Fox News, that there's no crisis? And I've seen it. I've seen it on my own land. And yet I'm having to address you via screen because you won't even have an in-person meeting because we're in the middle of a pandemic. And yet you're telling me that, oh, well, they're testing positive. It's okay. We're letting them go. We have no crisis, yet we're still not going to meet in person. That's just one example. We have another one, for example, is we have 8 parks open out of 40 in Brownsville, but yet we have hundreds of illegal immigrants coming every day through our city, but we can't manage to get our parks open. never be afraid to question. And you're going to have to do a little research. You're going to have to figure out, when are my city commission meetings? Who are my elected officials? A lot of people don't even know who their mayor is, who sits on their city commission, who is their representative for their district. Talk to these people, call them, talk and leave messages, send them emails. And if they don't answer, send another one, another one.
That's a great point. Yeah. Our voice does matter, and we can't sit back. We've got to be taking action, and even in those small ways. And My Faith Votes, we're trying to do the best to connect people with their legislators and leaders as well. So you can always visit myfaithvotes.org to kind of do that research as well. But Deborah, we just wanted to take this time to hear your story, and we're so appreciative of your courage to share that. But also, we just appreciate your willingness to take action and to inform people, but really encompass everything that we talk about, to pray about the issues, to think well, and then to take action. And we just really appreciate all that you've been doing, and such a great friend of My Faith Votes. Any last words to people who may be hearing this going, wow, I had no idea that was all taking place?
I encourage you to visit Border Patrol's website. I encourage you to visit Customs website. Like I said, I encourage you to reach out to your local officials. I mean, I am more than happy to talk to people if they just have questions, because I understand that not everybody has the opportunity to, say, for example, speak to a Border Patrol agent or speak to somebody that lives right on the Rio Grande River. Not all of us are privileged enough, I guess, in essence, to have that kind of access. But I know there's people that are more than happy to talk and try to explain things for people that don't reside here.
Yeah.
Because we're trying to bring awareness to the issue, because the media is not doing us justice. Not even for example, our own mayor.
Right. And like you said, we've got to be asking questions, and that's a good thing. So yeah, for those watching and you want to get in touch with us or with Deborah, you can email us at info@myfaithvotes.org, and we'll make sure to make all those connections. But again, Deborah, thanks so much. We are praying for you. We're praying for your family, and praying for your safety, but also praying for your boldness and courage as you encourage others to take action and become involved. So we really appreciate that.
Thank you guys so much for being so willing and open to talk about an issue that is trending at the top right now.
Yeah, people need to know.
Yep. So. Thank you for having me.
All right. Thanks, Deborah.